Eric, it is an honor to have you here today. Welcome back to the GSB.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited to be back every time.
Now, I'd like to start off by thanking you for not only helping to keep the world connected during the pandemic, but for creating a product that brought all of us a lot of joy and laughs too. Everything from Zoom weddings to Zoom attire. I'm thinking professional tops and pajama bottoms, and everything in between, so thank you.
That's why I like Stanford, like GSB, because I know Stanford GSB only use Zoom, never use any other product.
That is a true statement. Now, few founders can say that their companies have turned into a global verb. Take us back to the very beginning. How did you first come up with the idea for Zoom?
Back to 2010 timeframe, I was at Cisco. I was corporate vice president over there. And when I came to America in 1997, I joined WebEx as one of the first several founding engineers. I worked extremely hard, try to make WebEx better. Unfortunately, and after 10 or 11 years hard work back to 2010 timeframe, every time, I can tell you, when I talked with the customer, I did not see a single happy customer. Every morning when I woke up, I did not want to go to office. Because when you talk to the customer every time share the pain point, the mission, the video quality not very good, mobile experience horrible. I really wanted to fix that problem. Unfortunately, and they told me that that's not a good idea. You still can sell a lot of WebEx. Why do you want to cannibalize WebEx? And it took me 1 year. I failed to convince others. I guess I should come to GSB learn how to convince others. So I guess I did not, take that course. I failed to convince others. But anyway, finally I decided to leave to build my own solution.
And a key part in your story, you mentioned coming to the United States in the late 1990s. That path to get to the US wasn't necessarily smooth, was it? What kind of challenges did you run into coming to Silicon Valley?
Actually, that's a long time ago. I thought it was pretty straightforward. I was a very good engineer. I should get a visa. Unfortunately, and it took me 9 attempts to get here. Wow. My visa application got rejected 80 times. But luckily, I got the final visa and came here. But looking back, I really appreciate it, because the reason why is more like to practice my perseverance, right? Again, it took me 1.5 years to come to America to pursue my American dream.
Wow. And keeping on that international theme, I don't know if you know, but we have quite a few of our classmates in the audience who are internationals and are living in the US for the first time. What were some of those first years like in the US as someone who had never lived in Silicon Valley or the United States before?
That's a good question. I would say back to 1997. And I remember before I came here, I was extremely excited, right? Because when I was a kid, always read the stories of HP and Silicon Valley, Apple, very, very excited. However, after you landed here, realize it's not that easy, because you have to learn the culture, history, how to make new friends, build a trust, language barrier, all kinds of things. Luckily, I live in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, not only the worldwide innovation center, but also here, the people here is extremely friendly. A lot of leaders, they would like to help you. I think after several months, I feel like already part of the Silicon Valley. And looking back, I was, wow, this is the best experience. Yeah.
And I love your optimism. You came from China to the United States, not speaking English, applied for a visa 9 times, rose up in WebEx and Cisco, and then you came to the Stanford Graduate School of Business. What role did being at the GSB play in that vision to turn an idea you had back in 1987 into a company that is now
That's a great question. Anytime, if I have time, I take a break. I want to be part of a GSB group. I want to sit here like you guys. I think very excited. The reason why I said so is, back to early time when I came here. Before I came here, I was very confident. I said, wow, America, huge opportunity, right? As long as you work hard, you can achieve your dream. And however, after I worked for WebEx for a while, quite often I work very, very hard, right, and make a very good progress. However, sometimes your confidence level suddenly not very was as high as the first day when you landed here. And because you make some progress, you do not want to take a risk. You do not want to start over, right? And back to 2006, and I participated, the Stanford and the GSB SCP program. I can tell you, actually, just literally after the summer, the day after I left the Stanford, I felt more like the first day when I landed at San Francisco airport. My confidence level was extremely high. I almost quit the job to start a new company at that time. And but anyway, so being here just one summer, my confidence level is at least twice high. For all the GSB students, you're here 1 or 2 years. I guarantee you, your confidence level probably 4 times high. If you are not, I can tell you a backup program, SCP program, also pretty good too. So. But anyway, I was so grateful to Stanford GSB, great curriculums, right? Great, a lot of case studies and great professors, and I just, by the way, after that, every time, to manage a company, manage a team, it's pretty challenging. And sometimes, you feel like very lonely a long time. Every time I feel like that, if I come back to GSB and to Stanford campus, I can tell you, I sort of fully recharge myself. That's another reason why I'm here today. I need to fully recharge myself. So, yeah.
It's definitely a special place. I agree with you.
Very special. And also with not to mention entrepreneurial atmosphere here in GSB. I think a great opportunity, for all of you after you graduate.
Well, fast forward, that company that you had the idea for way back when, you were inspired at the GSB, that company has fundamentally changed the way that we all stay connected.
That's what GSB taught us, right? So, to build something to change the world.
Absolutely. But Zoom is seen as something that was an overnight success, but that wasn't the case, was it?
Yeah, it took us many years effort. I think prior to COVID, probably most of the people never heard about Zoom, right? But we were very patient, as long as we keep improving the product experience to make sure our customer happy, I know sooner or later we are going to achieve something. Yeah.
And so it sounds like a lot of hard work went into it. And part of that hard work was finding investors for Zoom. It's hard to fathom, but back then, investors weren't jumping at the bit to invest in Zoom. What lessons do you have from that period of time that you can share with the entrepreneurs and the aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience today?
It's good to know VC here, so I can share the story. And after I left Cisco, I thought I was a vice president of engineering. I built WebEx. I have also a lot of connections. It should be straightforward, right? You talk to VCs, they all want to invest you. That's my thought. But I was completely wrong. And I tried to talk to almost every VC I knew. Nobody wanted to invest in me. And plus some other VC friend told me that, Eric, as long as you build something else, our check was ready for you. So meaning you should not build another video collaboration solution. And I remember that I talked to one VC, and again, the VC mission, that's a horrible idea. You should not do that. But on the way back, and I told myself, you are wrong. I got to prove you are wrong. So after I back to the office, I changed my, the screensaver, to be "you are wrong." So, and I removed that after we became a Nasdaq public company. So meaning actually when you try to raise the capital, right? For sure we are humble, right? There's a reason why we see they did not invest you, right? You got to and understand why. It's good for you, right? But sometimes, and VCs might be wrong. If you think you're right, VCs are wrong, it's not a bad thing, right? Give you more reasons. You got to work harder to prove they are wrong. That's what had happened to us. Yeah.
I think that's an incredibly important lesson that I know a lot of us starting companies will keep in mind.
Yeah, don't give up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Quite often VC may not be right. So, and especially for those VCs, you never got educated here in GSB, right? So.
And I think another important lesson in that story is learning to pivot. As you mentioned, Zoom was a successful company before the pandemic, serving mainly B2B clients. And then boom, the pandemic happens, and you have to add B2C into that portfolio. What were some of the big lessons that came away, and how did you rapidly adjust to such a significant expansion in your customer base?
Yeah, I think that's a tough experience because you're so right. Zoom was built to serve for enterprise customer prior to pandemic crisis. And during the pandemic crisis, we had so many, the new users, consumers, all kinds of new use cases like K-12 schools or telemedicine, telehealth. We never thought about those consumer use cases. And the mistake we made is, prior to COVID crisis, we had a lot of security features, but normally we work together with the enterprise IT team. They are going to test our product with some POC process. They are going to enable some security features or privacy features. And however, for those first-time consumers, experience very different. They do not have an IT team, right? Then we realized we made a huge mistake. Not only did we play the role of offering the service, but also we should play the role of serving the IT for them. And so we learned a hard lesson. We quickly took actions, and we won the trust back. Because when you sort of lost the trust, you got to make sure take actions as quickly as possible, and also keep everything open and transparent. Why you made a mistake? What's your the effort, right? How to fix all those problems? Keep everything open, transparent. Communicate with the customers. That's a lesson learned. And finally, we won the trust back. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I want to pick up on a word you said, which is mistake. Something that I admire so much about you as a leader is your honesty and transparency, like you were talking about. And for example, when data and security issues were brought up during the pandemic, your response was to publicly roll out a statement of how we're fixing it. Here are the problems that we see, and this is how we're going to take feedback into account. You touched on this a little bit, but would love to dive in a bit more. How do you see transparency being important in leadership, and how can we as future leaders and leaders in the business world think about being transparent in difficult situations?
I think first of all, during the difficult situations, you got to just take a step back, right? Try to understand what had happened, right? Those end users, why share with you all those issues, because I think they care about us. Ultimately, for us, if we can address all those problems, who is going to benefit? Zoom, right? Ourselves. That's why we embrace, all those, challenges, right? And at the same time, we got to take actions, right? First of all, I needed to publicly tell them, sorry, I messed up. We got to fix. For all the issues we know, what's the problem, what's the root cause, what's the path and the solution to address all those issues, right? And I personally hosted a weekly security meetings and with all the end users, and also share with them transparently about those effort, plans, programs, how we double down on security and privacy, a lot of things, right? End users, they are pretty smart. They understand, are you going to try hard to fix those issues, or you just talk about that, right? So that's what we did, 2 years ago at Zoom, and prior to COVID crisis, look at our privacy security team, very small, around 12 people. And now we have more than 200 full-time employees, right? And because of that, and we took privacy and security very, very seriously, because a lot of security companies, they deploy Zoom, government customers also use Zoom, and finally customers really like Zoom and saying, yeah, you guys admitted those mistakes, and then quickly fix that problem. And also make it better, even better than any of our competitors in terms of security and privacy.
Because you had a lot of people relying on you. Can I get a show of hands? How many people used Zoom during the pandemic? I think I know the answer, but.
Yeah. Thank you, I use it too.
Yeah, there we go. John, Dean Levin mentioned this stat before, but I want to bring it out again because I think it's incredible. The number of Zoom users increased from 10 million to 300 million.
Sorry, that's a meeting participant, not
meeting
a user.
Participants, yes, meeting participants per day in just 4 months. I mean, Zoom was really pushed into the spotlight and also given a chance to shine. Walk us through your thought process. When did you realize that Zoom could play a critical role during the pandemic?
I think first, I remember, I think the first time my daughter, right, her, school, and also closed the school, went online. I remember it's a Monday morning, the first time, I worked so hard, and my daughter even did not know what I was doing. But, as she asked me the first time, hey, Dad, how to raise my hand during the Zoom call? I realized, wow, I never thought about my kids that are going to use Zoom. And I think the first time I realized, wow, this is a huge potential. And I didn't realize, and there's a huge opportunity at that time how to help the world, how to help the community, the society, right? This is the responsibility on our shoulders, right? The good news, we heavily invested in our company culture. The team worked extremely hard. I can tell you, I personally had way more, sleepless nights than any time in my career, and along with a lot of engineers, because we need to add capacity. India, Brazil, a lot of other countries, quite often maybe there's small glitches you got to fix quickly. I can tell you, wow, that's a 6 months time frame, and the good news, was over. So it's pretty tough, very challenging. Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I have to ask, hearing about the responsibility, hearing about all the things you were thinking about, the sleepless nights, how do you stay grounded, and how do you prioritize what really matters?
That's why I like GSB, I learned a lot of stuff. I was already mentally prepared well, right? Because on the one hand, if you really want to build something to make the world better, to change the world, for sure, you are going to face all kinds of challenges, right? Mentally, you got to prepare well. Meaning, may not be today, maybe next year, maybe next week, right? So mentally, at least I was prepared very well. So when that happens, I realize, on the one hand, you are facing the challenge. On the other hand, you also realize, if you can overcome all those challenges, right? Guess what? Your company, your team, yourself will become very different, become much better, right? That's why we leverage that opportunity. Look at every corners of our business. What we can do differently to improve? And take our team size, for example. Prior to COVID, we only had a little bit over 2,000 employees. For now, actually, we hired over 6,000 employees over the past 18 months, right? And to make sure further scale our business. This is a great opportunity for us for the future, and to position us very well to transform our business from being a video conferencing killer app company to be a platform business. That's a huge opportunity.
And the opportunities that Zoom has even in the future are huge. I want to come to a question first, though, that is something that we talk a lot about here at the GSB, which is work-life balance. I've heard that you are, in addition to running one of the biggest companies, also an active parent on your children's basketball teams. How do you balance, and how do you think about that work-life balance between spending time on your company while also spending time with your family?
Yeah, that's one thing, I guess, during my time in GSB, I did not learn how to balance that, because, and the reason why, and at that time, I also thought of a balance. And I talked with many other classmates and some professors try to figure out a way how to balance. Later on, I realized, as long as you think about balance, there's no answer. So meaning, don't think about balance. Think about, if you like work, and it's part of life. You are passionate about something, and especially you are good at something, and you also can create value. And if you like that, that's a part of life. Work is life. Life is work. Don't think about balance. That's one. Two is, what if there's a conflict between work and life? At Zoom, and our principle is very simple. Whenever there's a conflict between work and life, your family first. Always like that. Take my personal experience, for example, many years ago, and I think that's our Christmas party. And my son's high school, they also, they are going to have a basketball game and in San Francisco. I told our team, sorry, there's a conflict. I'm going to enjoy my son's basketball game. I'm not going to, I will be very late to the Christmas party, right? That's our philosophy. Don't think about balance. Find your passion. Work is life. Life is work. At the same time, if there's a conflict, family first. That's very simple. But don't think about balance. If you think about balance, every day you are going to struggle. Every month you are going to struggle. Yeah.
In addition to putting family first, it sounds like happiness is something that is so important to you. How do you take that personal value of happiness and then translate into a company culture that's also based on happiness?
Yeah, so company culture is extremely important. Looking back, I think that's one thing I personally feel proud of, because on the first day when I started Zoom, I remember only did two things. I wrote down company culture and value, and was about to use the furniture, right, for a table. So, but anyway, so our company culture just 2 words, very easy, right, very catchy: deliver happiness. And the meaning, and for me as a CEO of a company, my number one priority is to make sure Zoom employee happy. I believe if you have happy employees, you're going to have happy customers, right? So I do all I can to think about how to make sure Zoom employee happy, and at the same time, employee, they are going to make a customer happy. That's our company, the culture. Yeah.
Wow. And it sounds like as CEO, you have a lot of people to keep happy: your customers, your employers, shareholders. What happens when one of these stakeholder groups isn't happy? How do you keep them on board?
So first of all, we should tell them, right, what's the purpose of life, right? The purpose of life is really about happiness, right? And also the sustainable happiness comes from making others happy, right? For those shareholders, right, like a stock price is down, they are not happy. We tell them, hey, this is more a short-term thing, right? And plus, and we should communicate with them very well about why let's say you want to buy the Zoom stock, why you become a share the stakeholder, right? And ultimately, we want to make sure those the employees or shareholders, and they truly understand our company mission, right? And they cannot only look at the short-term stuff, right? And if they do not understand the purpose of life, just focus on the short-term happiness, right? For sure, that's not our company, the culture. We always think about what you can do differently to focus on long-term sustainable happiness, right? Rather than just a short-term happiness. Like sometimes employee, you just focus on the money or the power or the title. Those are the short-term happiness. Longer term, right, you got to look at, make sure the happiness is sustainable. Always think about in the long run, make a customer happy, make an employee happy, and down the road, I think you will get a much better return. Yeah.
And keeping on that happiness theme, because I think it's so unique to who you are as a person. Something else that we think a lot about here at the GSB is what kind of leader we want to become. We have a class where we ask ourselves, why would someone follow us? Given your background, being an immigrant to the US, being an engineer, overcoming adversity, putting happiness at the center of everything, how would you describe your leadership style, and how has that evolved over the years?
I think my leadership style, for sure, again, and I was very fortunate to live in Silicon Valley, and I've, during my career here, I had so many mentors, truly helped me, shaped my leadership style. And I think many years ago, I would say my leadership style is more like a very hands-on leader, right? And I tried to work so hard, try to understand, again, this is kind of, I should come to GSB first. Otherwise, I'm not going to spend so much time to learn marketing, sales, and support, and the strategy, and I learn a lot, right? Because I really want to understand how business operates, right? And it's more like very hands-on leadership. That's kind of my, personal style. But later on, I realized that's not scalable, right? How to delegate, some of the very important works to a team. How to make sure you are surrounded by a lot of leaders. Probably they are even better than you, on some fronts. I think I learned a lot. Otherwise, especially over the past 2 years, and I do not think I can sleep, right? And given so many challenges, so many opportunities, right? That's my leadership style. I think completely changed, right? How to balance between the hands-on leadership and also the delegation.
So it sounds like as Zoom scaled, you had to adapt your leadership style to fit that so it could scale with it.
Yeah, otherwise there's no way to scale, up your business. Yeah.
Exactly. We talked about Zoom pre-pandemic. We talked about Zoom during the pandemic. Let's look to the future. In 5 years from now, what is Zoom going to look like, and what are you excited for? 5
years later, Zoom will be for sure 5 years better. So after 5 years. But anyway, I think from our perspective, we truly believe, and in the future, from a technology perspective, Zoom even can deliver a much better experience than face-to-face meeting. You and I you can sit at home, I can sit anywhere, let's say local Starbucks coffee, I shake your hands, you feel my hand shaking, I give a hug, you feel my intimacy, and even if we speak a different language, we can understand each other, and you get a cup of coffee, I can enjoy the smell remotely. All those technologies will be part of our offering in the future. At the same time, we would like to transform our business to be a platform company. Video, voice, team chat, conference room systems, events, webinar, and also all other collaboration solutions. Essentially, the end user, they can live within the Zoom platform, can get most of the work done, rather than always switching back and forth to other, the applications. The switching cost is very high, right? Essentially, Zoom more like a working hybrid work operating system. That's why we are very, very excited. Yeah.
I'm excited for that too.
If any of you like that vision, feel free to join us. Yeah.
So you kept the world connected during a global pandemic and brought happiness to millions. 10, 20, even 50 years from now, what do you want people to remember about you and about Zoom?
It's great questions. I think one thing I really want, Zoom and myself to be remembered is that, if someone write a book, they would say during the 2020 COVID-19 crisis, there's a company called Zoom, truly helped the world, truly enabled global connections. That's what I want the world to remember myself and also the Zoom, also all the Zoomies. And that's pretty much. But again, and we just, started our chapter 2, and we are embarking on a Zoom 2.0 journey. It's more exciting stuff down the road. Yeah.
Wow. Principled and purposeful leadership. You must be a GSB alum.
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
So a final question before we move into audience Q&A. This is a question we'll be asking each of our speakers as they come throughout the year. And the question is, principled leadership is paramount at the Stanford GSB. What do you view as your role in leading with responsibility to not only your company, but to society at large?
Yes, it's a great question. So one thing I like Cisco, and when I was there, the Cisco former CEO, Chairman John Chambers, is such a great leader. I learned one thing from him. When you look at, as a leader, right? When you look at the business and the organization you work for, don't always think about, your organization. Always think about your organization's social responsibility. What you can do to help the community and society. Right? That's what I learned. That's why when it comes to Zoom's value, our company value, just one word, care. The care about the community, customer, company, teammates, and as well as ourselves. To care about the community, that's extremely important. Make sure your business, your organization is part of a society. You think about how you can play differently, right? Not only think about day-to-day work, but also play a bigger role. Make sure you can contribute back to the community, to the society.
Spoken as a true GSB alum.
Thank you.
We're now going to
I passed the test, right? To be a very qualified GSB alum.
100%.
Thank you.
Passed with flying colors.
Thank you.
We're now going to move into audience Q&A.
I still remember that particular day, October 27th, 2020, when I was in China, having a Zoom interview with Harvard Business School. And right in the middle of the interview, the severe connection issue or censorship that might have captured my twisted sense of humor, whatever it was, forcibly shut me out of the meeting and never allowed me to log back in. And a month later, I received a rejection letter from Harvard Business School, which spurred me to apply for the even better business school, Stanford GSB, where I proudly find myself at this moment. And I really appreciate Zoom for having changed my path in a very meaningful way. Anyway, so regardless of the countless efforts made by Zoom to improve the security and transparencies, I think there are still not a few people who have concerns over Zoom's association with Chinese government. And in fact, some organizations, including the Taiwanese government, Japanese government, and some private company in the US still ban the official use of Zoom. And in my view, that Zoom has been particularly susceptible to this kind of China-related speculations. because of your personal background and the fact that Zoom was actually complicit in China's censorship and repression in 2020. So my question is, how would you go about reconciling your personal identity as a former Chinese national holding American passport with the need for navigating a multinational tech company like Zoom in such a complex and sensitive business environment shaped by the U.S.-China relationship these days?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I think that's one of the best use cases, right? Experience about Zoom. So how lucky you are part of a GSB, So, and I think it boils down to one thing, right? How to build a trust, right? This is very important. All those issues you just described boils down to one thing, because the other side, see the customers who never use Zoom or some other government, they do not know who we are. Right? How to establish the trust, right? That's right, at Zoom, The Speed of Trust is our favorite book, right? The problem you mentioned, yeah, I was born in China, right? When pandemic crisis, came, when a lot of users, count on Zoom for some mission critical application, they do not know who I am, right? And, I'm American citizen, right? They do not know that. They say, oh, Zoom is maybe it's, kind of registered in other countries. That's not the case, right? All those issues, guess what? We did not do a good job. We should proactively communicate with the world. Who is Zoom? What kind of, the company and Zoom is. And also, what's our company, the culture and the value and the mission, all those kind of things. We leverage that opportunity, right, to communicate with whoever, may not understand our business, may not understand, our team, may not know me. Right, to leverage that opportunity to build a trust. That's why today you look at it, like President Zelensky, right? He's using Zoom, right? And also a lot of government, also use Zoom as well, right? But so many security companies as well. Ultimately, that's a way for you to always take a step back to understand what had happened, and then understand that problem, the root cause, and with a greater solution. I think that's why today, we are doing pretty well. So on that front.
I just want to maybe ask you how you share your secret, like to be such a big success as a minority of the Asian. And today we also have a lot of international student, Asian student here. Do you want to share how to make such a big impact as a minority in United States? And please share some advice and experience.
I think it's a great question. First of all, I think. Again, Silicon Valley, America, right, and culture-wise, is where I would say is open-minded, right. So meaning, as long as you work hard and contribute, right, and I think they will embrace you, right, the community and also the business industry, and I think that's a huge opportunity, right. I think don't think about your background that much. Just think about what you can do, right, to contribute back to the community, to society, right? If you can, and show the world, you can create a lot of value. Here, UB is very successful. Quite often, the reason why I'm not successful because, don't think about, from others' perspective. Always think about what you can do differently. Every day, you become better version of yourself, your company get better, and also you make the world better. And then actually you'll be recognized very well. Your business also will be successful. Ultimately, I think the common mistake is because you do not get it better. Your business do not get it better. And you think about, oh, maybe actually you're a minority, and also kind of there's some discrimination. I think that's not a root cause. Right? Root cause always focus on yourself, focus on your business, and create more value to the society. That's the key.
My name is Jiawen Tang. I am a second year here. My question is about the role mentorship has played in your life and your career development. Can you tell us who your most influential mentor was and how they shaped your life?
Wow, and we do not have a lot of time. Otherwise, I can share a lot of mentors. So, and I think one of the, let me take a step back, right? So one of the leaders I truly think influenced me most in terms of leadership style is a former CEO of Walmart, H.D. Scott, right? When he talked about leadership and Cisco oversight, had a huge influence. I even wrote a blog, and I also had a poster, on the wall in my office. And I think he's for sure is the best in terms of influence to my leadership style. And also over the past several years, right, quite often when I see some problems and when I was facing challenges, like I can call a lot of CEOs, right, like Salesforce CEO Mark, and Oracle CEO Larry, and HP CEO Enrique, and also Ray Dalio, and such a great leader. He and his team stop by in our office, to talk with our leadership team, help us a lot. And also, quite often I can call many, CEOs, right, and to help me also have our business. That's another reason why, Silicon Valley, has a great culture. A lot of leaders, they want to help you out. Actually, you got to proactively reach out to them. And I'm pretty sure a lot of leaders, even if they do not know you, they want to help you out, right? Because it's how to give back. This is part of a Silicon Valley culture.
My name is Alex. I'm an MBA too. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there were obviously a lot of video chatting services out there, Google Plus and Skype and of course Zoom. And why was it Zoom the one that triumphed in the end?
Great question. I think the founder is GSB alumni. That's the reason. Because, that's the root cause. That's the reason. So, but anyway, I think to build a better solution, you got to spend more time with your customers. Ultimately, what's innovation? Innovation really about you want to be the first company to understand customer pain point, and also take actions quickly, and to be the first winner to build a solution. If you keep doing that, sooner or later you are going to win. So that's our approach. That's the reason other competitors, I think they lost. Yeah.
My name is Yuchen Zhou, and I'm a first-year MBA student here. My question is, what was the most frustrating moment in your professional career, and how did you overcome the difficulties, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think, again, there's too many frustration moments in my career, and very often. But however, as a number one thing, you got to calm down. That's very, very important, because to be a CEO, the most important thing is you want to make a better decision, right? If you do not calm down, and if you are very frustrated, very likely you are going to make a wrong decision. That's very important. You got to make sure, take a step back, calm down, make sure you always try to make a better decision. That's number one thing. Number two thing is, at Zoom, we also have a formula, the problem, root cause, solution. Frustration will not help you anything, right? You got to do, every time you see the problem, and the huge problem, right? You probably feel frustrated. You got to take a step back. Just to focus on problem, root cause, and the solution. And to think about, if you can have a better solution, guess what? You are going to become a better company. And every time you think, wow, because this is a problem, Zoom will get better tomorrow. I'm going to become a better leader tomorrow. Then you should be happier, right? Why you feel frustrated? And that's my principle. Yeah.
I'm Ipshita, an MBA too. You talked about the importance of patience as you were building Zoom and that it took time. But now that you're a listed company, there's also share price pressures, there's pressures of quarterly results. So how do you balance the short-term share price responsibility that you have versus the long-term customer pain point view?
That's a great question. I think this is another mentor, my mentor. So and I learned a lot from him as well. The company called NVIDIA, right? And by the founder and CEO Jason, also the Stanford alumni as well. See, all those Stanford alumni companies doing very well. So you look at NVIDIA, the company history. I remember there's a time, 10 years in a row, the stock price was flat. Look at it today, number one semiconductor company. Because you make sure as a leader, right, always focus on the long-term goal, right? Do not focus on short-term. And also you got to educate the team, communicate with the team. The mission of the company is extremely important. You want to recruit retain those employees who share the same mission. And then you can focus on the long-term goal rather than just a short-term goal, right? I also learned a hard lesson. Over the past several years, I can tell you, our engineering team, very stable. I did not lose a single top talents. But we do lose a lot of salespeople because they may not understand the company mission, right? That's why I say, focus on and recruiting those talents who can share the same mission, focus on long-term. NVIDIA is such a great example.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
That's the best feature for Zoom.
So Eric, my name is Shantam. I'm a MBA 1 as well. My question to you is, Zoom really transformed within the first 3 to 6 months. I went from talking to my grandfather's forehead to actually hosting thousands of people on it, and you said customer was in the center of your development, but you also had so many different types of customers wanting sophistication of the product, and others wanting more basic needs. So how do you optimize for the product development phase and the growth phase and the communication phase of your product?
Yeah, this is a great question. So as time goes on, right, so the founder and CEO, the role, you have to change dynamically, right? So for the first several years, I was heads down to product side for the first 4.5 years, 5 years. And after that, I probably shifted most of my priority of work to go to market, and sales and marketing. But later on, I realized that's not scalable. We have to kind of take the turn, right? And sort of accompany the focus, the priority, from product focus to go-to-market focus, and then back to the product focus. I needed to shift my role, to focus on the product. That's what had happened over the past 6 or 9 months, right? You have to make sure from the top, right, from a CEO perspective, I always look at the product side. Otherwise, very soon, right, your product may not be best, right? So that's why I dedicate a lot of other go-to-market, the responsibility, the tasks to other leaders, and spend most of the time on the product side. And like key features and designs. Sometimes the features you think very, very good for enterprise customers may not work for consumers and vice versa, right? How to balance that? Make sure, you always simplify the product experience, and also make sure every product, managers, engineers, they truly understand why you added this feature. Not, when you build the product, it's very easy to add so many features, but guess what? It's not very easy to use anymore. Right? It's so crowded, right? So how to balance that? The ease of use and the feature set, enterprise customers and also consumers, right? The key is make sure you got to focus prior to that. Starting from the CEO and the founder, and all the team, and we'll follow. Yeah.
Eric, thank you for sharing those insights, and thank you for all of your excellent questions. We're not done yet.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But before I click end meeting, it's a view from the top tradition to close with a lightning round. So I'll say a short statement, and you answer with the first thing that comes into your head.
Sure.
Ready?
Yeah, always ready.
Most annoying Zoom habit.
Mute.
Favorite basketball team.
Oh, Warriors for sure. So, yeah.
Got some fans. Number of Zoom weddings you've attended.
More than a dozen. So.
Well, if you're looking for any more, I have quite a few friends getting married this year, so we can.
I can tell you the wedding ceremony hosted on Zoom, that's the best use case. Because you even do not need to make up. Zoom has a very cool feature called touch up your appearance, right? So.
I'll keep that in mind. Best advice you've ever received from your parents.
Hard work and stay humble.
And something you can't live without.
Love.
And I think the world that we live in today, that's something that we could all use a bit more of. Eric, thank you. It's been a privilege.
Thank you. Appreciate it.